This Sunday will mark 8 years since Nelson Mandela passed away, and thanks to the Nelson Mandela Foundation, his legacy will be preserved for future generation. And joining us to give us more clarity there is Nelson Mandela Foundation head, Professor Verne Harris. Professor, very good morning to you. You have made a way to ensure that the global icon has, some memorabilia to be remembered by, handwritten notes and some very special items.
Well, good morning to you and the viewers. Yes, we do have a very rich archive of what we call Madiba's personal materials. But that's just part of the work that we were given by him, actually. We keep a thorough record of his life and work, including being able to interrogate the mistakes he made and to learn from them. But on the other hand, our work is all about mobilizing that archive as a public resource for continuing struggles for justice.
In your archives, I mean, you speak about the handwritten papers, unique artifacts. What exactly is contained in these handwritten papers, for instance?
Well, we are fortunate that Madiba was somewhat obsessive about record keeping, always had a notebook and a pen. And so one instance is during the early 90s, right through the negotiations towards democracy, Madiba was keeping notes of the discussions, the decisions that were being taken by the liberation movement. So, when young people today, for example, make the argument that Madiba was a sellout, it is possible for them to come and read for themselves the kind of debates that were going on within the movement and the kinds of difficult compromises that Madiba was having to make.
And in your records, I mean, what format are you preserving this memorabilia? Surely, you'd want to ensure that you have some backups of some of his work to ensure that, it doesn't suffer any sort of damage.
Absolutely. Madiba never used a computer himself. So a lot of hard copy records, correspondence, diaries, and so on. What we've done with that paper-based material is to deacidify it so that it will last much longer, but we've also digitized it all. So all of these hard copies are also available in electronic form. And of course, his personal office over many years was using electronic records, emails, and so on, and we have that digital record as well.
You have been working on this project for a number of years, and in preserving the memory and perhaps allowing South Africans and those who may be interested to look back and learn from a man such as Nelson Mandela. Why do you believe it's so important for people to really be interested in getting more information and coming closer to seeing exactly what it was that was going through the former president's head and state at the time?
Well, I think for two primary reasons. The one is he had a dream for South Africa, and given the challenges we're facing today, it's very easy to stop dreaming. And part of our work is to remind South Africans and all who call South Africa home of that dream and of the need to keep doing the work that he started. The other dimension to it for us is it's really critical that we not mythologize him. He and his government did make mistakes in the 1990s, and we need to learn from those mistakes if we're going to do better for our generation.
In looking at some of those mistakes, I mean, we have constantly heard various politicians, including President Cyril Ramaphosa, who continue to quote Nelson Mandela. We've heard many people who use those quotes. Sometimes the the context is not so great, but the quotes are powerful. They make a big impact. How important do you think it is to ensure that the lessons of Madiba, the magic that is really used in a way that continues to bring about change and dreams, as you speak of?
Yeah, I think you've named it really well. It's important for us, I'll just give you one example, to understand that one of the reasons why our education system is so broken is because in the 90s, under Madiba's leadership, we tried to transform that apartheid system which we inherited using models from Canada and Australia. And there was a certain hubris to this, is that we should have been looking at models from Brazil, from Tanzania, from Zimbabwe. And we are paying a price for that arrogance and also that slavish implementation of benchmarks from the north as opposed to the global south. We're beginning to learn that lesson now, but we've lost many years because of that.
And what are some of the other projects that you're embarking on in preserving Madiba's memories and legacy as we mark 8 years since his passing?
Well, we have a range of programs and projects. I'll name just a couple to give you a sense of the diversity. We have what we call a Reckoning with the Past program, and this is about ensuring that we make liberatory futures for our society, not by turning the page on the apartheid past and the colonial past, but facing it and dealing with it. So, for example, we're in court at the moment with AfriForum, and this has to do with displays of the old apartheid flag, which we have successfully argued is a form of hate speech. Mm-hmm. Another example is we have exhibitions. In pre-COVID times, we used to do 2 exhibitions a year and then travel them around the country. At any one time, we would have 7 exhibitions, not all about Madiba, but about the work that we do, the unfinished business. For example, we did an exhibition 2 years ago, which was about the gold mining industry and the ways in which we still haven't reckoned with the thousands of families who have suffered because of the migrant labor system. So those are just a couple of examples.
And very lastly, before we let you go, we learnt of the former apartheid President F.W. de Klerk's passing, and a lot of reaction on social media about the manner in which he should be laid to rest, many calling for no state funeral, and, taking South Africans a bit backwards a little bit about the nature of the role that he played in the system and his way around crimes against humanity, not recognizing apartheid as such. In looking back at some of those conversations and some of the memorabilia that you may have in Madiba's, confidential things that you're keeping, what was it like to have to interact with some of the content while South Africans were having this debate?
Well, for me and for many of my colleagues, it wasn't only about interacting with content, with archival content. It was also interacting with former President de Klerk. He was in a number of our dialogue interventions. He would come to the office to visit Madiba and so on. I would say a profound ambivalence. And that has to do with recognizing the positive, but also trying to understand and deal with the negative. And I think it's fair to say for Madiba as well, there were trust issues. He embraced de Klerk very deliberately as someone with integrity, And that was a political strategy. But very often that trust was not returned. And so I think Madiba was also deeply ambiguous about not only de Klerk, but many other people who, became part of the government of national unity and were senior officials in government departments, headed the police, and so on.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time, Professor Verne Harris, Nelson Mandela Foundation Head, Leadership and Knowledge there, as we mark 8 years since the former president's passing, and of course looking into the archives and what memorabilia has been kept to really continue to preserve the legacy of Nelson Mandela.